record.
Hey everybody, this is John Weisman of DodgerThoughts at ESPNLosAngeles.com, and trying a little experiment today. We're hoping it works out pretty well. I'm joined via cross-country satellite web magic by Mike Petriello of the award-winning Mike Scioscia's Tragic Illness, named earlier this year LA Weekly's Sports Blog of the Year. And we're going to talk some Dodgers, the bad and the good. Of course, it's mostly bad, but we'll try to get some good in there. So, Mike, welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind introduction.
So, Mike gives us a good lead-in for our requisite talking about the Frank McCourt situation today. Mike posted the top 50 sins of Frank McCourt on his blog, and frankly, didn't run out, actually had an overflow to get him past the 50. How did you feel after working your way through all that muck, Mike?
Just unbelievably depressed. We've all lived through this for the last couple of years, but to actually have it written in front of you, item by item, it's unbelievable to see laid out in front of you like that. And like you said, 50, but I'm sure I missed a few. People have been giving me suggestions all day, so that list is going to increase by a lot over the next few months, I think.
I've seen some interesting conversations on Twitter today about just this idea of people are really revving up organizing fan boycotts. And I was sort of debating that we're sort of past that point. Everyone knows how unhappy Dodger fans are with McCourt. Everybody knows that the attendance is down, and we know why, whether the Frank McCourt camp wants to deny that or not. You're on the East Coast, Mike, so is there any misunderstanding about where Dodger fans stand on the McCourt issue?
No, it's funny. I think I probably got some of the same emails you did about the boycotts, and my response to them was, well, fans aren't really going anyway, so, what's the point of having a boycott? I think I saw Roberto Belli say that there's 3 different boycotts scheduled over the next couple of weeks. So, I don't know how much effect that's going to have. As far as the East Coast, what I found is surprising is that we kind of live in this bubble of being Dodger fans, especially Dodger bloggers, where we follow every tiny little piece of detail. And what I found is people are actually really surprised as to the extent of all the report. Maybe crimes isn't the right word, but sins or wrongdoing. And they're very surprised at how deep this has gone. They only just have heard over the last couple of weeks, I think, now that the bankruptcy and will be taking over. That's really where the outside of LA to kind of take focus.
So yeah, I think the issue's only getting more and more attention. Of course, every day brings the possibility of another twist in the case. I know we're all exhausted by it. Let's start talking about some baseball. The Dodgers scored 19 runs in their 3-game series at Minnesota and fell into last place. As we could have almost predicted, the 15 runs on Monday did not get duplicated. They are really low down, and it's unlike the Angels, for example, who the Dodgers are going to play this weekend. The Angels are starting to look up and actually have worked their way very much into the race in the American League West. The Dodgers, what do you think, Mike? Or should we even be thinking about this season?
That was actually a question I wanted to ask you, because I know in years past, I think you've written that you don't like to be the one who calls the season dead, because there's no joy, there's no reward in saying it's over. But it's over, right? They have the second worst record in the league right now. They're in dead last. I know they've got guys who are injured, but do we really have a lot of hope that they're going to come back? You can't ask Kershaw and Kemp, for example, to do any more than they've done with Jimmy Carroll. That means your hopes are rested upon, Juan Uribe turning around. And, maybe descending to the A's after the season. Hanchico becoming what he was last year. It's just with not enough talent on hand and not enough resources to go out and get anything else, I think it's really hard to see how they're going to come back from last place at this point of the season.
Yeah, my point of view has been as a fan, you don't gain anything from declaring the season over, and you can have realistic opinions, but what do you get from it? It's one thing to have lowered expectations, but it's another thing to say, the future. That being said, we all like to pretend to be general managers, and we all are concerned about the long-term future. And I think we've started to get a signal from Ned Colletti that even he is starting to look that way, and he'll be the last guy to give up on a season. The team is double digits in deficit in the NL West, and if over the next couple weeks they fall lower, I think we'll start to see maybe some more rumblings. the question is, of course, the fans always want to trade away the worst guys.
Right.
You're not going to get much for those guys. Even I think a James Loney at this point, even though his on-base percentage has started to rev up over the last month or two, I don't know how much a guy who basically needs to get non-tendered at the end of the season can get. I think Kuroda is probably the only guy who has the potential of netting a significant return, and we don't even know if he'd be willing to waive his no-trade clause.
I think that's a great point, and we've had those discussions in the comments in my blog recently. If you look around, obviously you're not going to trade Kemp or Kershaw or Billingsley, any field, and who's left? Casey Blake, he could be a nice bench piece, but that's not going to get you a top prospect. Jamie Carroll could be a nice piece, but he's 35, 36. He's not going to get you a nice prospect. Kuroda, I think you're right, but since he took that 1-year deal at a discount to come back to LA, who knows if he's even willing to go somewhere else. And even if he is, he's a good, number 2, number 3 starter, but he's not the ace. He's not the CC Sabathia this year. He's not the Cliff Lee this year. So, I mean, obviously you trade him if you can, but is it going to be a game-changing prospect? Probably not. I think fans could be a little disappointed this year either way.
Yeah, and the thing is, look, we know intellectually that it would be good to get something for Kuroda before he leaves, either for Japan or becomes a free agent. Even if he wants to re-sign with the Dodgers for another year, it'd be nice to get something for him. But it would make a long summer, from a sentimental point of view, it would make a long summer even longer if he were to go and the Dodgers have to get by with hoping that Eli Mania can come back, or pushing another guy into the rotation.
Ted Lilly stops pitching like he's the worst pitcher in baseball.
Yeah, well, that would help. And of course, you have to be concerned about Ruby De La Rosa and whether he can go an entire season. I mean, that's a guy who came into this season with less than 200 innings professionally in his entire career.
I think that's a great point, and that's not something a lot of people have talked about lately. I mean, his last start was amazing. His best start as a major leaguer. But you're right. How many innings can you push him towards, especially in losses?
I mean, that's a guy that you might want to start winding down when September arrives, and of course, then I guess we can see what's left to salvage it.
Dana Eveland at that point.
Okay, let's turn to the upside, the two bright lights, the brightest lights of the team, Matt Kemp and Clayton Kershaw, both outstanding. And the only difference really between the two, I think, is basically the 2 6th innings that Kershaw had on the last road trip in Cincinnati and Colorado,
I think. So.
Where he had shutout ball for 5 innings and then lost the shutout and eventually gave up 6 runs in Ted Lilly-esque fashion, I guess. And that basically has knocked him out from being essentially having a perfect season, just about the way Kemp has, because Kemp really has not dipped at all this year. Are you surprised that Kemp made it back this far?
I'm gonna take full credit for Matt Kemp's resurgence this year, because he was the one guy all throughout last year and throughout the winter that I was defending. Even last year, he didn't have a great season, but he had 28 homers. His OPS plus was like 110. If that's the worst possible outcome for a 26-year-old, that's pretty good. And then you figure this year, no more distractions. You want to say it's because he's not dating Rihanna. I don't know how much I bought into that, but fine, it's not there. I do think changing the coaching staff was huge. Getting rid of Bob Schaefer and Larry Bow and those guys, and instead bringing in David Lopes and Tim Wallach, I think that was enormous for them. And even from day one, I mean, you can see what the difference made. And you saw he homered in the last 5 games of the last season. I do think he kind of had a renewed dedication to prove himself. And obviously, we've seen the results, and that's probably the number one question I get from fans: is he going to be able to be re-signed when he's a free agent after next year? And obviously, no one can answer that right now, but I think that's what scares people the most.
Yeah, re-signing him after 2012, that'd be a tall order if there were no ownership crisis. I mean, that's a guy. When you see Jason Worth leave the Phillies who have not had any financial issues or any qualms about going for broke, and Jason Worth ends up in Washington, that just goes to show you that Kemp's future is just something you can only hope for the best for, even in the best of circumstances, which we may not be at. So,
right. And maybe it's not just about money with him. Maybe he's kind of sick of all the controversy. Maybe he wants to go to a team that's closer to his Oklahoma home. He hits better away from Dodger Stadium. All those are items aside from money that could impact him.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think I have a feeling maybe Kemp does like being in Los Angeles, but every time when he went nuts on that road trip and hit, I think 6 or 7 home runs.
Yeah, Cincinnati.
Something had to click with them and go, wow, I could do this every day.
Right.
On the bright side, we have Kershaw for a few years to come, and just smooth sailing. I knock on wood for him. And what else? What's the next level for him?
It's unbelievable. He's, aside from his pitching exploits, he's like the 4th best Dodger hitter on the days he plays too. It's out of control. I'm really interested to see what his arbitration figure is going to be this offseason if they don't sign it, because he's probably going to set a record. Who knows what that number could be? But I mean, how do you top the numbers he's got at his age? Really, the only thing that's holding him back is wins, which we should know don't really matter. But that's also in large part due to bullpen not holding up their end or not having enough offense. But I mean, he should probably be 11-2 at this point.
Yeah.
Who knows what he could end up with this season?
Well, I'm worried that Kuroda's going to lose 20 games. I mean, honestly.
He's on pace to lose 18.
Anyway, well, I think we'll quit while we're ahead with this hopefully first chat. But enjoyed it. Hope you guys all enjoyed it. And think good thoughts for this team. They can use every bit of them. And thanks, Mike, for stopping by.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure.